the definition is of a hate crime is it's any criminal offence that is perceived by a victim or another person to be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on 5 strands that are agreed between the police and the Crown Prosecution Service.
Affinity Extra, be extra.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast may not be aligned to those of Affinity Extra.
Yeah, guys, this is your boy here, Roger Moore, here on the Roger Van Moorinho show. We've got a special show today. I have got, now, believe it or not, I got a police officer. Now, don't run away. Don't feel scared. Don't feel intimidated. Don't worry. Your CRBs are all checked out. It's all that stuff. It's all been sorted out and you're all cleared. Because we're going to talk about some real subjects. And you do usually hear us moan and groan and... we don't go quite as far as fire and the police, but you know, we do go on and moan about what's happening in our communities and how we interact things as a police. But you know what, we have the guts, and I've been fortunate to have a conversation with a police officer. So he's been gracious, PC Stuart Ward, but we're gonna call him Wardy, to come on the show, and we're gonna have a great conversation with him, and our presenters will drill him. You know what I'm saying? And when he comes out afterwards, he will be pushing through the government a new bill of act called the Roger Van Moorinho Show Act. Clean up the system. But anyway, so sorry, guys, all joking. Sorry, I'm not, no pressure, guys. Yeah, sorry. So I couldn't resist it. Okay, guys, right. So everybody knows DJ Mello. Everyone knows DJ Marx. Everybody knows Roger Moore. I got no DJ name, but I just want to introduce Wardy. Wardy, do you want to explain who you are, your background, what football team you support?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. And apologies, it's taken a while to get this sorted out.
No problem.
But yeah, I'm a police officer for West Midlands Police. I've been a constable for 13 years. Predominantly, my background was what I describe as a response officer. So someone calls 999 and I respond to it, whatever that might be. So a variety of offences, missing people, suicidal people, thefts, robberies, burglaries, assaults. Literally, we would go to and deal with that. In January of this year, I moved on to the football unit for West Midlands Police, based at Halzone Police Station. So I've done that for about 6 months, and my core role now is to investigate hate crime offences, but also look at our preventative work, where we can look at educating people around these offences and encourage more people to report them, so we can identify more people who are committing these offences and ultimately bring them to justice and try and, where we can, eradicate all forms of abuse from society and social media.
Okay, I like that last part, and social media. You know, man, I think that everyone thinks that's almost like a free for all out there, that you can't be charged if you go on social media and say what you have to say. They think it's free speech. Now, I don't know. I have to put it out to the guys. Anyway, any vibe after that, guys? Anything you want to hit off Wardy with straight away, or you want to go into defining the whole hate crime?
I just one initial question. I don't know if you know, but in terms of the role that you do yourself now, is that something that the Met are doing on the whole? So like you'll have someone based in London, someone based here doing the same kind of roles that you're saying?
Yeah, so I think when I started the post, it went out nationally that I was the first dedicated football hate crime officer in the country, and I would be picking up all offences of hate crime across the UK. But for me, my role is West Midlands, so I'll cover all the West Midlands. I believe the Metropolitan Police are looking at setting up something similar, and Greater Manchester Police possibly as well. So obviously when they have got people in posts, I will be working with those, so we can kind of work very similar and try and all come together to obviously tackle issues that we've got.
Nice. Right, we've got Anthony's just come through in, so we're gonna bring a representative on. This is a Birmingham guy who likes Arsenal, bro. So you know that definition right there. So you got Birmingham guy who loves Man United, and you got. But actually, Wardy, what's your football team actually?
I forgot to answer that. West Brom.
I knew he was gonna say that. I had a feeling it was. Guys, you have to know, in the Midlands, if you've got a certain accent, it's either Baggies or Wolves. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's no.
Definitely not Wolves. Definitely not Wolves. West Brom.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Well, that's good. But but to be honest, my dad as a child, I just want to put it out there, he conned me and give me a away baggage full kit, which was the yellow and green one, back when I was little, obviously days before you had sponsors on it, and said it was the Brazil kit, that's the only way you could get it on me.
And we do play like Brazil when we wear that kit.
Yo, don't maybe when Seal them were there, but I don't know about now. When Lowy Cunningham, we might have been there, you might have got that, but no, they're fantastic. But bro, just want to kick things off with, I think over the past 6 months, and I must admit, Wardy, that from my conversation from yourself, and I know Anthony, who's in the group right now, he's been very into the definition of like what hate crime is, and we just want you to kind of like really put it out, because a lot of it's down to education. When you see racism, education of knowledge of what the perceived black people are, but also when it comes to the criminal element of it, I think it's important for people to realize, because it's almost a case of, if black people don't really kick off about it, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? And we haven't kicked off about it for only maybe a minority of us really do kick off. If professional footballers are not kicking off about racism, they think it's okay. So it's like, really define, because wrong is wrong, crime is crime. So if you could define and also tell us, when did it all start? The hate crime, is it something new, 2020, or has it been around for a while? All right, if you could.
So I'll give you the hate crime criminal definition first of all, and then what I'll do is I'll break it down and explain it, because when I came in to do this role, a lot of people that I spoke to, predominantly football players who were reporting these offences, were like, I don't know what hate crime is, and when you hear the words hate crime, you naturally just think, it's someone who hates crime, the kind of the wording. So the definition is of a hate crime is, it's any criminal offence that is perceived by a victim or another person to be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on 5 strands that are agreed between the police and the Crown Prosecution Service. One of those is race, religion, sexual orientation, gender ID, and disability. So those are the 5 strands, and they're all equally as important as one another. My time in my role, and probably what we read in newspapers and on social media, probably racism is the big issue because it gets reported more, but they are all as equally as important as one another.
Cool. Okay, I learned something there.
So, and just to break it down in real simple terms, hate crime, you can have any criminal offence. So you can have an assault, you can have a public order offence, and if that victim or another person who is subject to that offence deems it that it's perceived by hostility or motivated by hostility or prejudice based on one of those strands, it becomes a hate crime offence. So you have to have your statutory criminal offence first and foremost, and then as part of our investigation, when we're speaking to victims, when we're speaking to witnesses, if they believe it was motivated by the colour of their skin, or because they are gay or bisexual, or they have a certain disability, then it becomes a hate crime. And if it's in the football world, the football environment, it then will come in to me to investigate. And that's kind of what I've been trying to get across to people, just to educate them around that. But then the bigger kind of picture is, if we've got footballers reporting these offences, trusting the police to investigate them, we're getting the individuals identified, we're taking offenders to court, and we're sending out a strong message people look up to footballers. People will see that actually certain footballers are reporting it, and they're trusting the police, they're trusting the criminal justice system, and then hopefully people within certain communities and societies will then come forward and trust the police as well.
Sorry, just since you've had this position, have you had more feedback? Have you had more reports? And has it actually gone out to all of the clubs? Has it been like a directive from, through the FA as well as just?
So when I came into the role, one of the first things I wanted to do was work with the clubs, work with the players, and understand kind of where they're at in terms of reporting, if they have reported it before, kind of what happened, and if they haven't reported it, why have they not reported it? And a lot of it is down to education and awareness. So kind of early doors, we got into the clubs, spoke to them. The clubs have worked really closely with the police, as in the clubs across the West Midlands. They've worked really, really closely with the professional clubs, and they've allowed me access to players. Obviously, it was a little bit difficult with COVID. So one of the things pre-season is going to be looking to go in and sit down with the players and just give a 15-minute talk to them about hate crime, what it is, and kind of what we would like them to do in terms of reporting it, because ultimately the police cannot change anything first and foremost without knowing if something's going on. But it's not just the police who can make these changes. We're relying on the clubs, the Crown Prosecution Service, the FA, the PFA, the players themselves, people, supporters who go to games to report these offences, and everyone has a little piece to play to kind of to build the puzzle basically, and obviously make all those changes. So yeah, when I landed, we did that work, and then probably within a few weeks I was getting reports coming in regular, literally 1-2 a day coming in from players. Supporters obviously weren't in the ground, so a lot of my offences were on social media, and again that was another bit of educational work, because people didn't think that offences could be committed on social media.
No. That's good. I think for me, here's a question. Oh, 1 second. Is what's that noise?
Sorry, it's the phone in the background.
Sorry. No.
I'm in the office still at the minute. So.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Right. So now, obviously you're based in the Midlands and you work with the Midlands. We've seen cases from all around the place, all around the world about, in terms of hate crimes and whatever. Yeah. Now, Mello mentioned about the FA and the FA being behind this. Yeah. Whatsoever. From what we see, yeah, they're hiding behind and I have to be honest with you, a failed project called Kick It Out? Whatever. Kick It Out. Yeah. Which is a failed project, because it's just we haven't seen the fruit. And Kick It Out, if you want to come and talk to us, man. But they've hid behind that, and I know that there's been no push and re-education program apart from sticking up logos called Kick It Out. Yeah, and it's called Kick It onto social media and let them carry on. So has the FA been actually behind this, or have you had to educate the FA as well? Oh, and the local county FAs. So
obviously I've talked about the professional clubs when I first started going in, and I'll continue to work with the professional clubs, because this is not just like 6 months you educate people and then it's forgotten about. You've got to keep going into the clubs, the players, and educating them. But we've spoke to, obviously I cover the West Midlands, so we spoke to the Birmingham County FA, spoke to the FA, spoke to Kick It Out, spoke to the PFA. So trying to have obviously conversations with people, want to introduce myself and what I would like to do, because I'm clear in what I want to do. I want to get players on board. My role is football orientated, but I see it as if players are on board, then 100%. People look up to players. People look up to your professional players, and they will obviously report stuff. Well, that's what I would like to get to. Also, we want to work with the professional football clubs through the county FA, and also down to grassroots, because I think there's more probably issues at grassroots level and semi-pro level than there probably is at the pro game. But with the pro game, it's highlighted more in the media because of obviously the media span that it gets. So when we have a job come in, and I'll work with Kick It Out, because Kick It Out will do some educational pieces. Now, if the individual, the offender, doesn't go to court, and that could be for one of many reasons, and it could be that the victim doesn't want it to go to court, we will work with Kick It Out, and Kick It Out will come in and do an educational program with us, and that'll be 3-4 sessions with that individual, and it'll be bespoke. So that person who's committed the offence, they get into an understanding of the words that they're using or the gestures that they're making. If it's racism, some of the wording that they're using obviously dates back to many years, and they don't understand what they're saying. They hear it, they think it's funny and cool, and clearly it's not. So where we can, we will look to educate those individuals and try and get them to understand the effects that they have by the words that they're saying to people.
Just to add to that as well. Sorry, Roger.
Go for it.
Just to add to that. So, to my understanding, it's only West Midlands that's doing this at the moment.
So West Mids have got a dedicated football hate crime officer, which is myself.
But no other.
However,
go on.
Other forces, as far as I'm aware, don't have that dedicated officer, but they will still deal with hate crime offences within their football unit. But all forces will deal with hate crime. It's not a case of West Mids are the only force doing it. All forces will do it in their own different way. But West Midlands Police have decided that we'll get a dedicated football hate crime officer, and that obviously that's myself, and other forces may follow suit. I hope they do.
Yeah,
certainly some of the bigger forces.
So
but it's down to the forces.
Yeah.
Say that again, sorry.
So it's not an FA directive or an FA direct partnership with local forces or anything like that.
It's
Okay.
just West Midlands.
I will work with the FA. I'll work with Kick It Out. I'll work with the PFA, because I think we've all got to be pulling in the same direction if we're going to make any sort of change at all.
No, 100%.
That's always been my gripe. It should have really been it should be from the top as well, from the English football team right the way down, from the FA right the way down. It should be a blanket thing. I think it makes no sense if they're gonna implement, okay, you can take the knee because Black Lives Matter, then not implement anything to actually change the whole narrative. Then really, it's just a notion, isn't it? It's just.
Yeah, I mean, actions speak louder than words, don't they?
Yeah.
And
so big up to West Midlands at the moment.
Yeah, obviously I can't speak for other forces, but I can speak for West Midlands Police, and we are trying. I'm not saying it's going to all change overnight or over a week, 6 months. It's going to take years and years. It's certainly, if we're looking at education, to target a certain age group, a certain generation, and that's ultimately what we want to do. But we want to try and not use footballers, but by working with footballers to get them to work with the police, and then have that knock-on effect that people will look up to footballers and see that they're reporting offences, they're aware of them, and they're reporting them.
One of the things that I like that you said was the fact that there's the constant going back to the clubs and stuff like that. So it's not like just an appear, say a few words, and then kind of like disappear. Because I think that's important that there's a constant kind of follow up and check what's going on. One thing that I'm interested to know is in terms of the power they've given you to run this. Is it a case of looking at cases from here onwards, or are they giving you also the power to maybe look at stuff that have gone previously before you stepped in?
So since January, I've just been looking at cases that reports have been made to us. I think previously, probably stuff that certainly what I've read in the papers and on social media, these incidents were happening, but I'm not aware of them being reported to the police. So what I'd say is if people have reported stuff historically, and they've got new evidence, then by all means let us know. Obviously, if new evidence comes to light, we will always investigate it. Historic stuff, it would have been investigated by someone. Obviously, if there's no evidence there, then that kind of investigation falls down. So if they've got new evidence, by all means contact us, and obviously we'll look into it. And then I will continue to look at obviously stuff going forward. From January onwards, I've got numerous investigations ongoing, cases going to court. So yeah.
Quick question. You know, when like for example, you know, when we look at murder, yeah, you're thinking about, oh my gosh, you know, that's 20 years to life. You know what I mean? You think of that. You think of numbers like that, yeah. Now, if I say, for example, okay, let's take the call out the situation, and if I was being, say, homophobic, you know what I'm saying? I made something abusive to somebody who's homosexual, blatantly on social media, whatsoever, because of his football or whatever that's all out there, and I get taken to court, yeah. What is the actual? Not saying it's a deterrent, but you know, people can do time for this, innit? Technically, you know,
people can go to prison. And what I've said to people, and I stand by it, someone at some point will go to prison for these offences. For me, that will send a clear message. It won't solve everything. No. But it'll send a clear message that if you're going to go on social media, and we'll use social media as an example. If you're going to go onto social media, you're going to hide behind a screen or a fake account. You can be identified. You can, because I'm running investigations where we've identified people. And where we can, we'll get you to court. Obviously, with the support of that victim, if that's what they want as well. We're victim-led, so we'll always work with the victim of crime to see what they want. But ultimately, as police, we collate the evidence to look at bringing people in front of a court. And someone at some point will go to prison for these offences. And I'll always stand by that.
Cool.
Hold on.
Okay. Andy's smiling. he's been planning this one.
Yo, Brother X is here. Good afternoon, Stuart.
Hello, Anthony. You okay?
Yeah, I'm safe. I just wanted to know, listening to what you're saying, like, and what came to mind was the Ian Wright case.
Yeah.
Where they took the kid to court, racial abuse and all that, but nothing happened. So, yeah, would that be deemed as a hate crime?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the full ins and outs of that case. I know it was in Ireland, I believe. And obviously,
he comes from Ireland. He put on social media some racial nigger, whatever.
Yeah.
And he followed it through, went all the way to court, and the judge let the geezer off. Said he felt sorry.
Yeah. And for me, that obviously, again, I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but I get the other side of the victim side. You've gone through all that process. You've put your trust in the police. It's gone to court, and then he's just kind of. I think he was let. Was he a fine or something like that? I can't remember the full.
Not even
he was let off completely.
Just let off.
So for me, that's frustrating. That's frustrating for me as a person.
Yeah,
as a mixed-race person, but that's frustrating for me as a police officer as well, because a lot of work would have gone into that. We work closely with the Crown Prosecution Service, so we collate the evidence, we present it to the Crown Prosecution Service, and then we obviously allow the Crown Prosecution Service to prosecute that case. We're relying obviously on the courts to then do their bit as well. So, and there's a point I make earlier, it's not just a police thing that we can do to solve or eradicate this. It's everyone. Everyone has a little piece to play. The police, the Crown Prosecution, the courts.
That's true.
Society in itself has a big part to play, because for me, society is just broken. It's a mess. But yeah, that Ian Wright case, I read about it, and it's frustrating when you're trying to do a lot of work within the West Midlands and you see a case like that, because people automatically think, well, I've seen that Ian Wright case. What is the point of reporting it? Why bother? Why bother? And I get that, I understand that, and that's kind of why I think it's important to keep going into the clubs, keep going into the players, get into community societies and talking to people and keep educating them, and keep kind of refreshing them of the memories about why we're trying to do what we're trying to do.
Can I ask you another question, quick one? Hate crime. Is there an age limit? All right then, I work in care, and I've been racially abused by a young kid. Is there he's 10, I want him arrested. What will happen? I want him charged with a hate crimes. Called me, he's talking about my colour. Called me on several occasions. What can I do? So
obviously, I don't know if you were on when I explained what a hate crime was. I don't know if you just missed that. But ultimately, any criminal offence, and then if you deem it to be obviously based on the colour of your skin, it becomes a hate crime because of the race strand. So from criminal responsibility is the age of 10.
Okay.
So obviously, we can obviously investigate people under that age for certain circumstances, certain offences. But if you're reporting that, Anthony, obviously you'd have a discussion with the police. You'd discuss what you want out of this. Do you want, and what we're trying to explain to people, victims and offenders, and it's not to put victims off, but we like the preventative side of things as well. Certainly if it's a 10-year-old person, they need to understand what they're doing is wrong, and also they need to understand that the effect that it's had on you, these comments, I mean, it might happen to you on a daily basis, so you just brush it off, but that's not the point. But also, that they need to understand that by saying what they're doing or gestures, it affects them later in life. So when they become 18 and they want to go and work abroad, for example, in America, they can't, because as a 10-year-old, they made a comment about the colour of someone's skin, and it affects them all the way through their life. So we try and balance it up that, you might want it to go to court for that person to get a criminal record, but we also like to educate that person, not give them a slap on the wrist, but get them to understand what they're saying is wrong. And unfortunately, some people that doesn't work for all the while, and they do have to go to court, and we have to let the court decide the best way forward. But the officer will always have a conversation with you about what is it you want and what is it we can look at possibly doing. But I would always encourage to report it. If it's in a care home, well, wherever it is, it doesn't matter. It needs reporting, and these people need to be identified, whether they're 10 or 50. Then they need to be identified and called out.
One of the questions I would pose, if I can,
go on.
We're just picking up on kind of meshing together some of the things you said and an example of what you use. So, obviously, when you're looking at things like murder, theft, and stuff like that, a lot of the time, the evidence can be very clean cut. So how different, or say how difficult in comparison is it to really kind of prove that something is a hate crime, or that what the motive behind whatever the thing was? Because I can imagine there'll be some time that you can look at it and say, this is definitely racism, whatever. And other times you're kind of thinking, how am I going to prove that this is what it is?
So I mean, some words, and I'll use racism because that's probably one of my biggest ones that I deal with. There's certain words we all know on this conversation that people will use that is clearly racist all day long. It's clearly a hate crime. But then there's probably other words that are used that some people from older generations will use, and then they're not offensive, or some people from a younger generation might deem them to be offensive, older generations might not. If that person, that victim or a witness, perceives it to be a hate crime, it's recorded and investigated as a hate crime. We will then collate the evidence to kind of support that or not support it, whether we're looking at statements, CCTV footage. We would then present it to the Crown Prosecution Service as a hate crime, and then depending on that evidence, they would look at prosecuting it as a hate crime or not as a hate crime. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, that's good.
So someone can always report something as a hate crime. It might not necessarily then go to court as a hate crime. But certain words in terms of racism, that they're clearly racist words.
Just to expand on that a bit, because like you said, certain words are clearly racist words, but just in terms of friendships and business relationships I've had with people over the years, one thing that I've realized is that there's some words, for example, which can be used, like in certain cultures, which are very natural, almost part of the language. But then like you go to another culture and it's like you said, it could be deemed as hate towards that person for where they come through. When it comes to actually, whether it be, your initial start to an investigation or when it gets to court and stuff like that, does the whole cultural side of it comes into it in terms of, okay, they've used this word, but because of the where they've come from and the way that it's using their word, even though in my culture it might be seen as racist or whatever the prejudice might be, does that come into it in terms of looking at
it all forms part of the evidence. Obviously in the statements we'd be collating, that would form part of the evidence. If we then arrest someone, bring them into custody, they obviously get interviewed, so they give an account, and part of their account might be that, well, in my culture it's accepted, so I thought it was acceptable to say that. But we would then present that to the Crown Prosecution Service. They would weigh up the evidence, and then they would decide as to whether that individual's being charged or not under a hate crime or maybe a separate offence.
Okay. And I think there's a difference between culture and the way you've been growing up as well. Because sometimes people look at, I grew up in an environment where that was just a normal word. That's different to, I grew up in a Latino state, and this is the word that they use as well. And I think that people have to hopefully listen to this and realize there's a difference. You know what I mean, in terms of that. Wardy, so far so good, man. Really getting a real idea about of this whole scenario. Now, I don't know about any more questions from you guys, because I want to go into some live scenarios.
No, go ahead.
You go ahead. Cool. All right. Cool. So, at this moment, right. So you're staring at fans next season, yeah, and we've seen the empty stadiums, taking the knee, and some people forgetting, i.e. Sane. But anyway, let's not go there. And all these different scenarios that we've seen, and some players like Zaha. We've done a podcast about we're just sick and tired of the knee because people are just abusing online, and then we started seeing fans. And the classic one that was raised was the Millwall fans booing at the knee, but they didn't realise that the West Ham fans booed. But what they did at Sky is switched off the mic. So that was a very clever trick. Now the reality, and obviously now in front of our faces we've got the England fans. No matter how much they're clapping to cover up a sound,
minority
I'm saying, and then you're staring at an absolute nightmare with the fans going back next season with the knee situation. And for me, I'm looking at, okay, right, the FA said we're not treating it as a political situation. The FA spokesman said we're treating it as racism. Yeah, the government, it looked at it from a political perspective and said, Boris Johnson himself said that it's people are free to give their opinion. Yeah, and we've said on this show that Black Lives Matter is not a political persuasion for us in this country. Yeah, it doesn't affect us like the same way Donald Trump, the same way Republicans, and it doesn't affect us. So stop hiding behind that. So you're staring at, bro, all these Birmingham teams, West Midlands teams taking a knee. West Bromwich, Wolves, Villa, Birmingham City, even touching Coventry. I don't know if you cover Coventry. You know what I'm saying? Guys taking the knees in these areas, and even down to some of the high teams like Howes Owen and now for me, I would mention it in one of our shows. I'm sure Anthony raised it. Is it a case that in this England scenario there should be making a arrest, looking and actually implementing something, or is it just a free-for-all now this next season and we literally can't do nothing about it?
I think first and foremost, I don't know obviously what everyone's opinions are about players taking the knee, and again, people I've spoke to are like, well, they're taking the knee and they're aligning themselves to a political movement, the Black Lives Matter, and I do argue that, because I think the players, certainly the players that I've spoken to, are taking the knee to raise awareness on all forms of discrimination and abuse. And when I go out with my friends, we have this discussion. They'll say, "Oh, did you see the booing the weekend? What do you think? Oh, it's disgusting, etc." but it keeps that conversation going. So players taking the knee, it keeps people talking about it. So for me, I actually think it's good that the players continue to take the knee. Unfortunately, supporters are booing it in a minority, and it's difficult for us to police supporters booing it. But I believe that they're doing it because they don't understand why players are taking the knee. They seem to think it's because they're aligned to the Black Lives Matter. It's a political movement. We don't want politics in football. But players are taking the knee because they want to keep that awareness heightened. They want to keep raising it, keep the discussions current. And I think ultimately it will stay.
Good. No, I hear what you're saying.
Do you think that we're lacking a black voice or black voices from
the pros?
From the pros, basically, and an actual definitive voice from the pros. I know that we've got a lot of black footballers that are on TV now that are in prominent positions where their voices are being listened to. But do we have a voice from the professional footballers with regards to racism or discrimination or any form of abuse?
We've got, obviously, Kick It Out, have Anthony Burnett, who, I don't know if you've seen his interviews, he quite openly goes on to TalkSport, Sky Sports News, and he talks about these issues and kind of how he wants to try and tackle them. He's a great voice. So he's speaking for Kick It Out's behalf. Personally, I think a lot more can be done from all the other organisations as well. I think that needs to happen. But taking the knee keeps it current for me. England will take the knee tomorrow, and there'll be discussions about it Saturday night, Sunday morning, probably all next week about it. And hopefully, if England progress, Wednesday it'll happen again, and it'll just keep it current. And then players will be back playing games for the start of the season, and I think it will continue. And it just keeps everything, people talking about it, keeps raising that awareness as to why players are doing it.
No, that's good. That's good. Now, we saw the other day, in a report, I think DJ Marx kind of reported back to us, there was homophobia going on with the Mexico for the and what they did, they made the fans were going on a bit homophobic with one of the players and whatsoever, and they shut the stadium down. Yeah, they said next game, no fans. Now it sounds radical, yeah, but for me, as soon as you hear booing, next game, no fans. Until you recognise, but I know that's very radical and very harsh. But I'm seeing it implemented from an FA perspective, not FA.
But you look at obviously when the Super League was proposed for the Big Six, the alleged Big Six, and that was, how quick was that shut down?
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
You know, and I know it's money orientated, but you've got high-profile footballers, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, who kind of, I wouldn't say orchestrated it, but were kind of the leaders of getting that shut down. And look how supporters then got involved and how quick that was. Well, it's gone now, doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, look at the Euros just now. They had the LGBT stuff with, was it Czech Republic?
Germany
and Hungary.
Right? So they wanted to promote, they wanted to light up the stadium and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And again, they rose awareness for that particular cause or for that particular issue. You know what I mean? And to the point where they put a directive across the whole of their FA that across the country, all of their major clubs are going to represent LGBT. There's no booing about that.
Yeah.
There's no major kick-off about that.
Yeah.
You know, they make all the captain's armbands, or majority of the captain armbands now are LGBT armbands.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, in the same way, the same energy is not kept for racism. The same, the same energy is not kept for racial abuse and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm just very frustrated when you see those things happen.
Yeah, but you look at that, and obviously LGBT, how powerful football is, how powerful footballers can be to get a message across, and that's why I think it's important, and I think it's really important that players keep taking the knee.
Yeah,
they might look at changing something, maybe not taking the knee and doing something else, but they have to. I think it's important they keep doing something, because that they are real powerful individuals. Whether
Look at
we
Ronaldo.
agree with it or not, people look at them. Yeah, look at Ronaldo with the coke.
With the Carlsberg, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you
shut
know,
down
it's
Carlsberg
ridiculous.
overnight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, actually boosted up Carlsberg, but he shut down Pepsi, didn't he? They lost billions, you know what I mean? But it just goes to show you, if one of our like top black footballers, and there's so many of them, stood up and just said, listen, in the middle of an interview and said, listen, this needs to stop right now. You know what I mean? We need to clamp down. The FA, the UEFA, FIFA, you have to clamp down on abuse of our black players. You need to do something. You need to put a directive out there.
Yeah, I agree. They'll all be in contact as well. You know, Marcus Rashford, although he plays for Man United, will be in contact with Raheem Sterling, who plays for Man City. They'll be in contact with Reece James, who plays for Chelsea. And you know,
That's it. That's
a
it.
lot more could be done.
A lot of them afraid of their. They're afraid of the repercussions. You know what I mean?
I just don't think we radicalize over here, guys. You know, I really do feel that not radicalize. I feel like we've mentioned. I don't know. Make it sound like.
I'd just like to reiterate the views and not necessarily representative.
You know what I'm saying? Well, I would say radical. We don't stand up on our own 2 feet over here, like I believe, like US. I think it's the traditional. We mentioned it many times. We've seen Muhammad Ali. We've seen a lot of US athletes use their position, prepared to sacrifice their careers. You know what I'm saying? Kaepernick is one of the latest one, having his career taken literally off him, and I just don't see it in the UK. You know what I mean? But you know, I have to salute people under pressure cursing Rashford about he needs to focus on his football. Yeah, but I have to respect people like Rashford. He's almost do because he's not made it. This is not a black and white thing, but he cares about something that affected him as a child. He never had enough food. You know what I'm saying? So he's coming there, stood up while he can, and made a big move. But at the same time, he takes the knee. This is I want people to understand this. How this makes me feel sick. You receive food from this guy. This guy has gone out his way to feed, I'm not saying the nation, literally himself, but with the create up a community, white, black, Asian, whoever you are. And then when he takes a knee to say, listen, can you, and he gets the most abuse from his own fans, let alone anybody else, and get booed. Just for even 2 people booing, it's too much. Don't disrespect a man who has actually said, I'm not looking at your colour, I'm just looking at your hungry child. You know what I'm saying? And it's just amazing how people's mindsets are just blinkered at that. It actually hurts.
You came out, you stood out on a governmental level, even local government, even Andy Burnham. You came out and to be honest, he did send out a tweet, fair enough. But he really stood out and stood by Marcus at that particular. That was an opportunity when he got the most amount of abuse. A lot of our black footballers, I think it was after one of the games, got the most amount of abuse, and nobody stood up for them at all. Crazy.
The question then is because I think that there is definitely a part of it where it comes down to, like Wardy was saying, awareness. People assuming that these guys are thinking because of the whole BLM thing. So I suppose the question really should be, should there be almost like a united front of the players come forward and saying, guys, this is the reason. And I'm not talking about, because we know, for example, after the England game, you know, the players and Gareth said about actually the reason whatever was this and the other. But I'm talking about a constant reminder to people, the reason that we're doing this is because we want to create awareness for this, so that there's that constant message going out rather than a one-time message, a constant message that it's not because of...
Come up with a name, come up with a gimmick or whatever it may be that represents us from the UK with regards to football, and us representing against and standing against any form of abuse. It doesn't even have to just be racism, but any form of abuse that we're going to stamp it out, and we are actually going to be taking action against any individual that does that, because there were too many keyboard warriors and fans that are in the stands abusing our black footballers. But then half an hour later, when you're putting England through to the next round, it's a different story. All of a sudden, he's the boy from Brent.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, at all, don't let me have to go down that road.
Oh,
You know
don't
what I'm
wake
saying?
me up. Don't wake me up. Don't wake me up. Don't wake me up.
Boy
Don't
from
wake me up.
Brent, you know.
Boy from Brent,
From Brent Tree. Ben Tree over
from
so
Brent,
down so.
from Brent we Trelawney.
Yeah, man, from Brent Tree. From Brent we Tree.
Brent we Trelawney.
You get me?
Oh Lord, I think we just lost Wardy for 2 seconds there. Still, yeah, guys. Hopefully, he got scared. We hit that conversation there. Still, hopefully, he'll just jump back in anyway. Still, yeah. So, guys, how you feeling so far with the conversation? Insightful.
Yeah. It's good to get his perspective, innit?
To tell you the truth, bro.
Yeah.
It's just at the end of the day, we can go around.
Coming back in.
Go
Yeah.
around the weekend, right? Just go around the weekend.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the problem's this.
Yeah.
You've got all this West Midlands police doing this, that, and the other. When are you going to bring someone to court and make a stand? The geezer racially abused Marcus Rashford from the stands in the Chelsea Man United game. We took him to court. We give him a fine. We give him 3 months in jail. That'll stop someone doing it the next time. Until that happens.
Yeah.
Until that happens, it doesn't make sense. This long talking, and we're going to do. We've been talking for years, fam. We've been talking for blinking years, bro. You know what I mean?
No, I hear that, and I think from a professional perspective, but we want to even touch base about grassroots. I know we're coming on to the show, and I do want to touch base, but this is a total another show. Why we as I would say, I said normal black people, but why if I got racially abused, it's almost a case of going, what's the point of going to the police? Yeah, I think we've got our own. Working class, which is the majority of us. Yeah, normal, black people, but I think. We don't naturally go to the police because we would deal with things ourselves and end up being locked up ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
Because what's the fact of that? Because you don't think police are going to do anything about it.
Yeah, it's true.
Let's be real. And like he says, that's what I brought the Ian Wright situation. Bro, it's gone to court. To court, the courthouse. This is what we're pioneering for. Get to court, make an example of, and the man's gone. See you later. Don't worry about it, bro.
And then
I think we need to look at the balance as well, though, because on one flip side, I'm looking, and like everybody else, I was upset the fact that the guy didn't get more than a slap on the wrist, effectively, for what happened with Ian Wright. But then on the flip side, I'm also looking and thinking, well, this situation, 5-10 years ago wasn't even making it to court. So I see, although there's still a lot that needs to take place, there's definitely been progress where certain steps are now happening, which I feel weren't happening before.
But it's still not quick enough, is it? It's still not.
Yeah, it's not quick enough.
Where we want to be.
Yeah. And to be fair, on top of that, that's just my personal opinion. I personally don't think it will ever be rid of racism. I think the only way we can.
No, we're never gonna
get rid of it. But I think having deterrents in place to kind of, I don't know if you can say control it. I don't know if that's the right word, but having those deterrents in place, so at least it gets people thinking twice before they say certain things or do something. Yeah.
As I said to you before on our podcast, I believe until nothing's going to change until government or whoever it powers be start holding the clubs responsible for their fans, because when you go to a football match, the club is responsible for how their fans behave. Yeah. So if their fans are racially abusing a player, team, whatever, that club should be dealt with discipline. And it's not we play 2 games behind closed doors, mate. That ain't cutting it.
The thing is, people get banned, I think people have been getting banned.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
But they've not been making it public. They'll say it, they'll mention it.
They'll say it.
They might mention it on Sky Sports or whatever, but they're not going to give you the details of what the ban is. They're not going to give you, you know what I mean? Oh, the ban for life or whatever. Sometimes they don't even give you that detail. They just say that person's been banned from the...
So, can I just clear that up a little bit then? I'll just explain that. So, obviously, when we arrest someone, obviously we interview them, it goes to the Crown Prosecution Service, they then charge them. We then apply for a football banning order, which gets then applied at court. So if they're convicted at court, the court will then apply, the prosecutor will apply to the court for a football banning order. Now, that will ban them from entering any football ground in the UK for a period of time. So it could be from 3 years and upwards, depending on the nature of the offence.
Okay.
They also have to hand in their passport when England play an away game. So obviously England are in Rome tomorrow. Their passport has to go in.
Wow.
And also that has an effect on their life massively, and it should do rightly, because people work abroad. If they've got to then hand their passport in, they can't work abroad. It affects the job. So, and then the club will do their own civil ban. But if that individual then has a football banning order issued by the court, they breach it, they get locked up, they run the very risk of going to prison.
Wow. Okay. No, it's good to hear this. It's good
Or
to
get
hear
a
this.
fine, sorry.
Yeah, get fined. Okay. No, it's good to hear this, because sometimes, when you see the ban on order, we don't see the. Just you explaining it like that kind of gets you thinking, oh, that will mess somebody up, or good and pop. And I think,
but that's not explained from the top, though. We've heard that from you, from Wardy. Yeah. We're not hearing it from the FD. You know what I'm saying? We're hearing that from the FD.
There's more in the banning orders, but that's kind of like a basic.
That's interesting.
They get banned from football grounds up and down the country, and if they're found to enter, which people have been found to enter them, breaching the ban, they get arrested. They can go to prison and or receive a fine.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
think what would be good, I don't know how viable it is, but I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, just to buy a football ticket, you have to go online to the website, enter your details, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people are like members of their clubs, things like that. So I can see some kind of, I know for me, for example, I'm getting newsletters from Liverpool all the time. I wouldn't mind getting a newsletter from Liverpool saying that, as part of the club trying to, cut down certain things, we are now supporting the police or whatever it is with this. And as a result of, these actions, these are the kind of things that could happen. So I think there's, like I said, I don't know how viable that is, but I definitely do think there's a lot more things that people could be doing, especially on a club level, in terms of making their fans aware of how much they actually are backing, if they are backing this, kick racism out of football and all this stuff.
Yeah. But the thing is, sorry, Marx, my thing is the reality of the show is, for me, is that the clubs are not totally behind it. The money makers behind it. And when I've seen them, and I go back to American sports, it's not until the black basketballers said, we ain't going on the pitch. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? When all the owners go, court, oh my, you know what I'm saying? Onto the court. Sorry, my netball expertise didn't kick in there. But anyway, sorry. but when they said we're not going on, they literally run basketball now. Black basketball players, because when they see an injustice, they're like this. Nah, we're not taking it. When they had I think the last playoffs, they just turned around and said, we're not touching the pitch. Today we are mourning the shooting yesterday, what madness happening. I think it was Tennessee or something. But I find that again, if the black footballers on the pitch, against England, when they first booed, got up, walked off the pitch in a friendly, just feel it's a friendly, walked off the pitch, every single one of them says, nah, you disrespected me. The next time you watch everyone shut up. Yeah, everyone will take Gareth Southgate won't make such a uneducated, and I think people need to blast him for that. His uneducated response about Black Lives Matter shows that he needs to be re-educated as well. You know what I'm saying? About the whole situation, the reality shows, because for him to say that publicly shows where he's at for me. You know what I'm saying? And I might seem like I'm being sharp and annoyed with these guys, but when there's an education perspective, because the racial element of it is, for me, the end product of miseducation. You know what I'm saying? And there's two perspectives of it.
I would agree with that, because like Wardy said, people look up to footballers and stuff like that, and if they see them react in a certain way, automatically it'll trickle down and make people think, okay, if they could do this or not. But it works both ways. So if Gareth goes on TV and he says it's because of Marxism or whatever, then automatically
everyone else thinking
this. So regardless of what the true meaning of what the players are doing might be, in terms of like where making people aware and stuff like that. If the person above them that's making the selection is saying actually it's because of Marxism, then automatically that's where people are thinking. So
Sad.
it definitely needs to be something that's like, it is going to be a message. It can't just be from the players. It has to come from those making decisions above them. So like if it's those within the camp, if it's the club, those within the camp, everyone has to kind of be on board.
Everyone has their part to play, don't they? They have their own little bit to play, but everyone has to do that.
No,
Wardy,
That's probably not happening. Yes.
can I ask what? Oh, who's knocking off my door like it's the
The big red key.
That's a 5-0.
Should it be in
You get locked up for having that sign behind you.
listen.
Lucky I was on live then. I know. What I was gonna say is, with all this Black Lives Matter and all that, what's it like within the police force?
Ooh.
As in what? What are you trying to?
As in like, you know,
Is it like culture all the time?
when these topics come up, what's the discussion like in the locker room amongst the lads? You know, here we go again, chip on the shoulder, or is it, you know, I empathise with them because they have been. What's it like, if you don't mind me asking?
I think, obviously, my own personal experience. I think when I hear, obviously, the George Floyd or the Daley and Atkinson case, and it's involving police, the general public think, police are racist. Police, you know, there's issues within the police, there's racism, and they're targeting black people. I can only speak on what I see and what I hear within West Midlands Police, and for me, to be honest, that's a minority. That is a minority. The Daley and Atkinson is a minority. We're all trained to deal with a lot of situations. I think stop and search is a big issue. But as officers now, we have cameras. Those cameras have to be on at probably every incident we go to, and certainly stop and search, purely to protect the officer, but also to protect the individual. So if you're stopped and searched, Anthony, then it's a case of, probably as a black male, you're going to be feeling that you stopped and you searched because you're a black male. But officers have to justify. They can't just walk down the street, see you're a black male, and think, you know what, I'm going to turn him over and search him and empty his pockets. And I feel we've come away from that. We have to justify. We have to have our reasonings for stopping someone and searching them. So, kind of to answer your question in the best way possible, because it's a difficult question, I think probably the minority of officers, the majority of officers, certainly West Midlands, go out to do a good job to help people, whether you're white, black, Asian, male, female, but like all walks of life, any organisation, there is always that minority, unfortunately, and those individuals do give the police a bad name, and that's what people remember. They remember the officer that dealt with Daley and Atkinson, but the police do a lot of good things as well, and I don't think that gets highlighted the way it should. Everyone focuses on the negatives that the police do and get wrong, and we do get things wrong. But, you know, we're no different to anyone else. You know, but so yeah, I don't know if that's answered your question.
No, it's okay.
No, that's a great question. Listen, guys, you know, I think we're coming up to the end of the show, and what I want to do is I want to close off on a small on a little point, But Wardy, want to get you back on because we want to talk about almost the real, like, Anthony kind of touched the tip of the iceberg there, because we're looking at Daley Atkinson situation, which is emotional to us, you know, and again, you only can talk from your perspective, but the information that you have and what you can say as an officer. But when we've seen things from 2016 till now, and things are not being done, now protesting. Now we see in America that protest is a powerful thing. I'm not saying we don't see it enough. I think our protests are more like an overspill of what happened in America when it came to Black Lives Matter. That's the reality it shows. But seeing Daley Atkinson being murdered, and obviously we didn't know the details until the other day, to be honest. That's when the details started coming out now, because maybe if it was videoed, we may have kicked off from day dot, you know, and that video was on social media. I'm sure if you saw somebody being tasered for 33 seconds, and I think that we don't want to again, we've got to be very careful not to villainize the whole police force to say that, you know, we're saying to defund the police. We're not saying that. Without police, we know it will be a bit of a disaster out there. Do you feel that protests make a difference in the with the situation? Say for example that was my brother. Yeah, if my brother got murdered like that, I've said in the last show, I believe it was the last show, I'm sure Anthony said it in a few ways, said, you know, described how he would respond to but I think I would have to kick off if he got to, this is 2016, this is 2021, this is 5 years, I know, say, if I got caught...
He got 8 years, didn't he? Was it 8 years you got?
He got 8 years. Now, it took 5 years to get here. Yeah, for me, that's too long. If I was a family relative, I'd be like this, right? I don't really care what the courts think, and magistrates think. I'm gonna go out there and protest and saying that this is unjust and go on social media to rally people. Now, that sounds very, you know what I mean, out there.
You end up getting locked up for scandalizing him or victimizing him.
Is that the right way? Does that push the system over here or doesn't it? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not saying everyone should get up arms, but I felt like nothing happened with this. It's 5 years. It's a long time. And I don't care what the system is. The system works quicker than that. But that's what it comes out. But then you may give a different perspective where I go, oh... But you know, I don't know if
I don't obviously know I only know what is in the paper ultimately, what's been reported. 5 years, 6 years to investigate something. For me, that's a long time. Just looking at that, obviously,
black and white like that.
You know, that's a long investigation. But I think the court result got to the result they needed to, in the end, hearing the facts. As police officers, we have to justify everything we do in terms of use of force. You know, if we put hands on someone, we have to justify it in our statements. If we taser someone, it has to be justified, whether it's for 5 seconds or 33 seconds. It has to be justified, and if it's not justified, it's unlawful. And we're trained in that.
Okay, good.
You know, but the court result is the court result. Whether we agree with it or not, that's where we're at in terms of protesting. People have a right to protest, freedom of speech. I think the issue with protests is you always have people who jump on the back of the protest and are intent on derailing that protest. So the true message doesn't get across that you're protesting about, because you'll have people jump on the back of it who just think, oh, this is an opportunity to attack the police or to attack a certain community, and then before we know it, it's police and you're rioting and everyone's fighting, and that message just gets lost. And then that's what people then focus on. They'll focus on Roger Moore has started a protest and it's resulted in a riot.
I like that.
Tommy, you've been the next Tommy. What, like a black?
I have to go into hiding.
I think what Roger's trying to say though is really should it take 5 years for evidence crime to court? Because
I mean, it depends on the evidence.
Let me finish. But what he's trying to say is he believes, and we believe, and we're just talking real, that if that was a Caucasian person, it wouldn't take 5 years. It wouldn't have took 5 years. That was a Caucasian footballer who got killed by police. It wouldn't take 5 years to get to court. Not a chance. As a betting man, I'll bet a lot of things. My house, whatever. I'll bet it. It wouldn't have happened.
No.
Wouldn't have happened. Wouldn't have took 5 years.
You're probably right. Obviously, I'm kind of sitting on the fence a little bit because I don't know the I don't know the circumstances, but I look at that 2015 and 2021. It is a long time to investigate something. 6 years, and with him only getting an 8-year sentence for manslaughter, I totally get.
Is that do 4 years and come out or something like that?
I think it's been reported 2/3, hasn't it? I think that's.
How much would that be?
So you're talking over half. You're talking about 6 years.
6 years. He got 6 years. So
on the 2/3, yeah. So
know what I'm saying?
Still peanuts. Still peanuts, though, ain't it?
Yeah.
You know,
For taking someone's life, yeah.
taking someone's life. No, you know, whatever it was, whoever, you know, it's still peanuts.
Yeah, it's peanuts. But I wouldn't want to be a police officer in prison. You gotta put him in Winston Green.
I don't know where he's gone.
Put him in Winston Green and just say, by the way, he's got 6 years in Winston Green and cell block this. But anyway,
regardless of the 8 years,
Yeah.
the courts have got to the decision that they found him guilty.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I know that the sentencing is probably not the answer that the family and the black community would have liked, but ultimately he's been found guilty and he's been held accountable to his actions on that day.
And to be honest, that will be actually, it'll make the next police officer think again how they deal with a situation. I think there's a major thing after that that I've been part of with Minds. He's been working with the police in terms of approaching black people in terms of, like, you know, in terms of mental health and I can't remember what is it, the triage. There's a certain team with mental health triage.
Mental health triage.
They get involved in terms of interacting. So no, that's been implemented in the past couple of years.
There will be a lot of lessons learned. There'll be like a big review, and I know that doesn't help the family in terms of losing Dalian, but going forward and trying to learn from our lessons, which is what we have to do. We have to learn. As I said earlier, we make mistakes. This obviously is a huge, massive incident that occurred, but we need to learn from it to ensure that it doesn't happen again, whether it's a black male or white male or female. It doesn't happen again.
No, that's fantastic, bro. And guys, I gotta close off the show. And Wardy, I really do appreciate the time, and I know I really want to catch up once the season started and just see your workload if we can squeeze in, because I can imagine your workload. And we're not cursing the whole situation, but we know that. And we want to be part of the education process, bro. So if you say to us, listen, guys, I need to get a podcast out. I want to get this information to your community about this perspective, because I've learned from your perspective how you look at cases, how you look at banning orders, how that is processed, how that affects somebody's life, because we don't really look at it from a perspective of, they have to hand in their passport. You know, man can't go every World Cup, they can't leave the country. You know, every,
Benny Dom.
Yeah. Well, you think if England have got a tournament and your missus wants to go away and you've got to hand your passport in, you're in the doghouse.
Finish me.
Zoom holiday.
Yeah, that's just like, it's a small overview I've probably given you today in terms of role, and I'm not sitting here and say things are going to change within a day, within a month. Racism, would be very, very naive to think racism is going to be eradicated, because unfortunately racism is there. But I want to try and obviously do more to remove racism, really.
No, 100%.
From a police point of view.
And we have to
you guys out there as well, if you're watching, any questions or anything that you want us to pick up again on a future podcast around this issue as well,
with Wardy,
let us know.
No, 100%.
Not as hard as Anthony's questions.
Very easy one, bro.
Before you ask tough questions,
lightly, bro. Trust me.
I'll try and answer them as best as I can.
I just talk from the heart, man. That's what I think people need to do. As black people, we need to talk from the heart. Be able to talk to police officers from the heart, open and honestly, to let them know. Because let's be real, we've been brought up. We don't have that affiliation with police. That's how we've been raised. That's the facts.
That's what I want to try and break it down. I want to try and work with people from the black community and see that, I'm mixed race male. I'm a mixed race male. I've been racially abused from a very young age all my life. And I've had it when I've been working in the police, not from officers, but from people I've dealt with. And it'll happen again in the future to me. I'll be racially abused. So, this is not something that I haven't experienced. It's happened to me, and it'll continue to happen. I'm in a role where I'd like to think I can try and make, even if it's a little bit of change, to help someone else, or to understand kind of my experiences so it has an effect on them as well.
Visit us for updates and shows at affinityextra.co.uk.